You never notice the weight until you set it down. For years I carried them. Amy and her daughter, Brooke. I married into their lives thinking I could add something solid to the fractured shape they called family. A roof that wouldn't leak. A hand that wouldn't leave. Not a replacement. Not a hero. Just a man who shows up. But the truth is, they never saw me. Not really. They saw the money I moved without question. Tuition for a community college Brooke barely showed up to. They saw the hours I spent beneath her rusted Camry, tools in my lap, grease in my fingernails, while she scrolled Instagram on the porch. They saw the concert tickets that somehow made me cool for a day, until the band stopped playing and I became silent again in the car ride home. They saw the service, never the man. Amy, she said the right things when the lights were low. Thank you, over dishes. You're good to her, when she was tipsy. But when Brooke rolled her eyes at me, dismissed me, muttered, "You're not my real dad," under her breath, Amy never corrected her, never challenged her. She just sipped her wine and turned the volume up on the TV. And so I swallowed it. I told myself, they'll see me eventually. One day the weight will be recognized. But that day never came. It started, I suppose, in moments so small they didn't feel like wounds. Not at first. Brooke was 14 when I met her. She barely spoke to me the first 6 months. She didn't have to. Amy said she was just protective. That it would take time. I accepted that. I showed up anyway. I mowed the lawn, replaced the kitchen faucet, fixed the screen door that had been broken since her father left. I didn't ask for thanks. I didn't expect it. I believed effort would be enough. I believed love could be built quietly. It wasn't. By 15, Brooke had started calling me Tom, never Dad. Not even accidentally. I never pushed. I thought it's just a name. Don't get caught up in names. But names mean something. They shape the air around us. Every time she said Tom, it was a wall being built, and Amy never reached for a hammer to take it down. We had one photo together on the mantle. One. Amy had placed it there our first Christmas after the wedding. The three of us smiling stiffly, staged in front of the tree. That was the year I bought Brooke a new laptop, the one she said she needed for school. 2 months later, she was using it to video call her friends, barely passing her classes. She never said thank you, not once. But Amy told me, don't take it personally. Teenagers are like that. That became her favorite phrase. Teenagers are like that. As if contempt was a phase. As if disrespect was a rite of passage. As if being treated like a servant in my own home was something I should nod through quietly because it's just a stage. When Brooke started driving, it was me who sat beside her, white-knuckled and patient, as she made jerky turns and screamed at every honk. It was my Saturday mornings she consumed, my insurance she was added to. And when she scraped the mailbox and cried, it was me who comforted her, told her it was okay, told her that mistakes happen. I even paid for the paint job. But when she finally got her license and took the keys to that car I helped fix, she didn't tell me. She told Amy. And Amy smiled and said, "Isn't that great?" I was an afterthought in every celebration, a placeholder in every family photo. The man who stood behind the curtain while the spotlight found someone else. Someone absent, someone who had abandoned her years ago. Her real father. That was the part that stung the most. The way Brooke talked about him. Not often, just enough. He used to sing that song to me. Dad used to take me to this diner. I wonder if he still lives in Tampa. A ghost who had vanished when she was 10 still had more presence in her heart than the man who made her breakfast for 6 years. And Amy never said a word. Never once pulled Brooke aside and told her to appreciate what she had. Never once said, "He's the one who stayed." She just let it happen. Let the silence grow. So I became useful. That was my role. Not loved. Not respected. Useful. When Brooke failed a biology course, I paid for her summer makeup classes. When she applied to colleges and her scores weren't good enough for scholarships, I opened my wallet. I told myself it was an investment, not in her education but in our connection. That if I showed up when it mattered, she'd see me. she'd see all of it. But she never did. Instead, she started acting like the money came from the walls, like the car fixed itself, like the groceries appeared in the fridge because the house willed it so. Amy noticed the bills, of course. She always flinched when the statements came, but she never offered to split them, never said, "You've done enough." She'd just place her hand on my arm and say, "It's for the family." But I didn't feel like family. I felt like staff, invisible until needed, disposable when firm. The first time I asked Brooke to do the dishes, she laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd to her. "That's your thing," she said. "You always do it." Then she turned back to her phone. Amy didn't say a word. I walked out of the kitchen that night, something tight unraveling in my chest. I stood in the garage for almost half an hour, just breathing, just gripping the edge of the workbench like it might hold me together. Still, I didn't confront anyone. I didn't scream. I didn't draw a line. I told myself, be patient. This is what it means to be a step-parent. You earn love slower. You earn respect inch by inch. But respect never came. And love, if it ever existed, had faded into something cold, transactional. By the time Brooke turned 19, our conversations were reduced to requests and logistics. "Can you drive me to the campus? Did you renew the Netflix? I need help with this application." Not a trace of warmth. Not even the courtesy of pretense. I became a machine in the background. One she didn't maintain, one she didn't notice was rusting. And Amy? She still called us a family. Still introduced me as her husband at church functions, with that proud little smile like I was some long-suffering saint. She still posted pictures of our backyard barbecues with captions like #FamilyTime. Even when Brooke barely spoke to me over burgers I grilled. The hypocrisy soaked everything. And I endured, because I believed it would change. Because I believed that if I stayed long enough, gave enough, forgave enough, something would shift. Brooke would look at me one day and realize what I'd been. Amy would finally defend me. The weight I carried would be acknowledged, if not shared. But then one night all of it cracked. One sentence. 8 words. Said without emotion, without thought, without hesitation. "You're only useful when we need something." And suddenly I was free. She said it without flinching. "You're only useful when we need something." No anger. No sarcasm. Just the dull, mechanical cruelty of someone who doesn't see you as real. Someone who speaks the truth they've always believed, only now they've stopped pretending. I remember the exact moment. The fork in her hand. The screen light of her phone casting blue shadows on her face. Amy to her left, chewing in silence. The smell of garlic from the pasta I had made still hanging in the air. And the way my breath left me. Quiet. Controlled. Like a man realizing he'd spent years watering plastic flowers. I stood up without a word. Not out of rage. There was no rage left. That had burned out long ago. What remained was a hollow space. The kind silence builds when love rots from the inside. Amy didn't speak. Not when the words were said. Not when I pushed my chair back. Not even when I picked up my keys and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I walked out like a man finally stepping through the exit he should have used years ago. The air outside was thick. Heavy with the smell of the sea. The sound of cicadas grinding through the darkness. Our little coastal town was always beautiful at night. But I had stopped noticing beauty a long time ago. There's a certain kind of numbness that creeps in when every kindness is mistaken for duty. I sat in my truck for a long time. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. I don't remember. I didn't cry. Didn't shout. I just stared at the dashboard and let her words echo in my skull until they lost meaning. Until they became nothing but noise. A static hum behind the truth I had never wanted to admit. I was not part of that family. I was a service. A tool. A man-shaped ATM who fixed broken things and absorbed blame when they stayed broken. And when I was no longer immediately useful, when I asked for decency, for participation, for the bare minimum of shared weight, I was told I was overreacting. That I was being too sensitive. That I wasn't her real father. It hit me then that I had been living in a house where my presence was required. Hood was negotiable. So I made a decision. Not out of bitterness. Out of clarity. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was quiet. Amy's door closed. Brooke's bedroom light glowing faintly under the crack. I didn't knock. I didn't speak. I brewed coffee like I always did, stood by the window, and watched the sky shift from navy to gray. Then I walked to my office and opened my laptop. First, I canceled the auto payments for Brooke's college courses. The ones I had set up under my name because she had missed the financial aid deadlines, and I had stepped in to save the semester. I opened the school's payment portal, logged in, and removed my billing information. Took 2 clicks. Then I called the insurance company. "Hi, I need to remove a dependent from my policy." They asked why. I said "She's not my daughter." I said it flatly, without emotion, and something inside me clicked when the woman on the phone said, "Understood, sir." After that, I logged into our streaming services. Hulu, Netflix, Spotify. All of them were running under my account, charging my card, feeding hours of content into a household that rarely acknowledged my existence. I changed the passwords. I removed the devices. I turned the lights off in rooms I wasn't welcome in. No grand announcement. No theatrical showdown. Just quiet reclamation. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was ending a transaction. A few hours later, the house began to wake. I heard Brooke's door open, the creak of her steps down the hallway. Then a voice, sharp, indignant. "Why isn't my class portal working?" I didn't answer. A pause. Then footsteps toward the kitchen. "Netflix won't let me log in. Did something happen?" I sipped my coffee. She looked at me like I was a glitch in her system. "Tom." I looked up, met her eyes. "You said I'm only useful when you need something," I said. "So I've decided to be useless." Silence. She stared like I had spoken another language. "That's not what I meant. It's what you said." Amy entered the room a minute later, mascara still smudged from sleep, robe hanging loose. Brooke turned to her like a child lost in a store aisle. "My class won't open, and the insurance charged me for something. Twice. I'm overdrawn." Amy blinked, confused. "What do you mean it charged you?" I stood, poured the rest of my coffee down the sink. My voice was calm, but it had weight now. The kind of weight truth carries after being ignored for years. She's on her own policy now, and she's not enrolled in automatic payments for her classes. Amy's eyes narrowed. "Tom, what are you doing?" "I'm stepping out of a role I was never invited into. You said I was overreacting." She said I'm only useful when she needs something, so I've stopped being useful. Amy looked at Brooke, then at me. "You can't just." "I didn't just anything. I've been just for 6 years. Just supportive. Just quiet. Just the guy who picks up the bill. Now I'm just done." Brooke's voice cracked then, something halfway between anger and fear. "You're ruining everything over one sentence?" "No. That sentence was the receipt. The purchase had already been made." I left the room, not storming, just walking like a man who had returned from war and laid his armor down. That evening, Brooke didn't eat dinner. Amy didn't speak. The silence had changed. It wasn't passive anymore. It wasn't the usual fog of avoidance. It had weight now, consequence. The kind of silence that finally says, "No more." The next day, Brooke tried to log into her student dashboard again. Still locked. She called tech support, called the bursar, found out there was a hold on her account for non-payment, found out she wasn't covered under my plan anymore, found out her bank account, once safely funded by my invisible hand, had overdraft. That's when the crying started. Not the performative kind. Not the manipulative sobs of a teenager trying to twist the world back into comfort. Real crying. The kind that says, "Something safe is gone." She didn't come to me. She went to Amy. They sat on the porch. I watched through the window, heard pieces of it. "Why is he doing this?" "Because he thinks you don't care." I didn't mean it like that. I closed the curtain. Not to punish them. To remind myself that I didn't need to listen anymore. Later that night, Amy approached me. Her tone was sharper now. less confused, more accusatory. You're breaking the family. I looked at her, really looked. For the first time in years, I didn't soften when she frowned, didn't second-guess myself when she sighed. No, I said. I've just stopped building a house that wasn't mine. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing to say, because deep down she knew. She had let it happen. Let Brooke speak to me like I was furniture. Let resentment replace recognition. Let her daughter weaponize my patience against me, and never once told her to stop. So now the bills were due, and I wasn't paying them anymore. The thing about being useful is that once you stop, the silence becomes louder than the service ever was. 3 days passed. No money moved. No reminders were sent. No apologies offered. Brooke avoided me. Amy hovered. The house, once filled with lazy sounds, sitcoms half-watched, doors swinging open and shut, the clatter of dishes that always fell to me to clean, had gone still, like a theater after the audience leaves. No one spoke of what had happened. Not directly, but the air was full of whispers. Not words, but the kind of muttered resentment that sticks to the walls. You could feel it under your feet, in the creak of the floorboards, in the way Amy glanced at her phone then at me, waiting for something to undo what I had done. But nothing was undone, because this time I meant it. That Sunday, I watched Brooke at the kitchen table, laptop open, face pale. She wasn't scrolling TikTok. She wasn't texting. She was checking balances, searching for financial aid, calling her bank. I didn't offer advice. I didn't step in. I watched her struggle in the exact silence she had once gifted me. She hung up after the third call. "They won't release the hold unless tuition is paid in full," she said to no one in particular. Amy said, "Maybe talk to him." Brooke stared at her. "You talk to him," she said. "You're the one who married him." Amy didn't respond. That night, the fight began. Started small, a crack in the dam. Amy asked if I'd consider helping, just until things stabilized. Her voice was careful, rehearsed, like she was walking on glass. I could see it in her eyes, the plea she hadn't yet formed. But I also saw something else. Expectation. The quiet assumption that, eventually, I would relent. I always had. Not this time. I poured myself a drink, sat on the back porch, and let the silence answer her. When she followed me out, I didn't move. "You're acting like a child," she said. No, I was finally acting like a man. I turned to her. She said, "I'm only useful when I'm needed." I believed her. Amy crossed her arms. "She didn't mean it." "No," I said. "She did. And so did you. Every time you let her disrespect me and said nothing. Every time you expected me to carry this family while you stood on the sidelines pretending neutrality wasn't a choice. She's just young. She's 19. That's old enough to open a bank account, vote, and judge me in my own home." Amy's mouth tightened. "She's your daughter," I added. "Not my responsibility. Not anymore. You're punishing her. I'm allowing her to live by her own definition. I've become useless, Amy. That was the deal. I'm honoring it." She left the porch without another word. The next morning, Brooke tried a new angle. She asked to meet. Not in the kitchen. Not at home. At a cafe we used to go to years ago when I still believed I was building something permanent. She wore sunglasses, though it was overcast. Her hair was pulled into a tight bun. She looked tired. Not from lack of sleep, from the sudden weight of ownership. From the realization that the person who had always caught her had stepped aside. We sat by the window, 2 coffees between us. 2 people pretending to be something they weren't anymore. "I wanted to explain," she started. I didn't interrupt. "I was angry," she continued. "I didn't think it would matter. I didn't mean to. I don't know. Break everything." I nodded. Not out of agreement. Just acknowledgement. She looked away. "I guess I just assumed you'd always be there. Because you always were." Silence. "And I didn't realize how much you were doing." That one hit different. Not because it felt redemptive. Because it felt mechanical. Like a script. Like something she had practiced in the mirror. Still, I said, "Thank you for saying that." She looked up. Hope flickered in her expression. The same flicker I had seen when she wanted something. A ride, payment, a rescue. But I wasn't rescuing anyone anymore. "I'm not coming back," I said. "What?" "To being your safety net. To paying for what you feel entitled to. To pretending I'm part of something that treats me like a vendor." She blinked. "But you're my—" She stopped herself. Couldn't finish the sentence. "Go ahead," I said. "Say it." She lowered her voice. "You're not my real dad." And there it was. The fallback. The final shield. The same line she had used since she was 15. The thing she always returned to when gratitude became too heavy to carry. "I know," I said. "But I was the one who showed up. I was the one who stayed. And I was the one who paid for everything, including the privilege of being reminded that I'm not him." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not then. She just looked down at her coffee. "I'm not asking for money," she said finally. "Good. I'm asking for a reset." I leaned back, considered it, let the idea float in the air between us. "No," I said. "Why?" "Because you're not asking for a reset. You're asking for a return. And I don't live there anymore." We finished our coffee in silence. When we left, she didn't hug me. She didn't speak. Just walked to her car, the one I had repaired 5 times, insured under my name, filled with gas with my card, and drove off without a glance. I stood in the parking lot for a long time. That night, Amy tried again. "You could just help with this semester," she said. "Let her catch her breath." I shook my head. I already paid for 6 years of breath. She exhaled every one of them in contempt. "She's learning. She can learn the way the rest of us did." When no one came, Amy folded her arms. "You're punishing me too, you know?" I looked at her. "Yes," I said. She flinched. "You stood by. Let her talk down to me. Never stood up for me. Let me give and give and give until I was a ghost with a debit card." "I didn't think." "That's the problem," I cut in. "You didn't think. You assumed. You assumed I'd keep paying. Keep cleaning. Keep playing house while the two of you played daughter and mother and left me out of the script." She turned away, arms wrapped around herself like a child who had finally been told no. Later that week, she stopped cooking dinner. Stopped checking in. We became shapes passing each other in a house that used to pretend to be a home. The distance didn't scare me. Freed me. I started sleeping through the night again. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up in a panic about bills, about logistics, about being on call, in a family where my name was always last on the list. I started living like I mattered to myself. That was the real realization, that I had been treating their indifference like a challenge to overcome, not a reality to accept. Now I accepted it, completely, without apology. And the house, the family, began to show cracks it couldn't hide anymore. Cracks I used to spackle with patience. Now I let them split, because I had finally learned something they never wanted me to know. When you stop holding everyone up, you find out who can stand on their own, and who only look tall because they were standing on your back. 3 months. That's how long it's been since I became useless. Since I stopped paying for the life that drained me. Since I stopped showing up where I wasn't welcomed. Since I stopped mistaking sacrifice for love. And in those 3 months, something strange happened. They adapted. Not quickly, not gracefully, but they did. Brooke took on more shifts at the bookstore. I heard from mutual friends that she applied for a campus loan and fought tooth and nail to reinstate her classes. She didn't ask me for a signature. Didn't come crawling back for money. For once, she stood on her own feet. Wobbly, uncertain, but standing. She even learned to change the oil in her car. I saw the receipt on the kitchen counter one morning, stained with motor grease and pride. I didn't say anything, just nodded to myself and brewed my coffee. Amy changed too, subtly. The little things. She started asking instead of assuming. "Do you mind picking up dinner?" Instead of, "Can you grab food on your way home?" She began cooking again, simple meals, quiet meals. She stopped saying things like, "You have to," and started saying, "Would you prefer?" It wasn't a transformation. It was an adjustment. Dinner became quieter. No more laughter echoing off the walls. No more fake smiles for the sake of family. But the silence felt honest now. Not hostile, just stripped of performance. And in that quiet, something finally felt bearable. One evening, while setting the table, Brooke said something, casually, like it didn't matter. "Remember when everything suddenly stopped getting paid for?" she said. "That was the best lesson of my life." She didn't look at me when she said it, didn't smile, but the words were clean, not sarcastic, not bitter, just honest. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because in that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. By stepping back, I had forced them forward. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. We didn't go back to what we were. We couldn't, but we moved forward. And that's enough. I don't pretend we're a happy family now. I don't expect warm hugs or Father's Day cards or last names scribbled on envelopes. I know what I am and what I'm not. But I also know this. Sometimes the only way to be heard is to go silent. Sometimes love looks like absence. Sometimes the most generous thing a man can do is walk away. And now I ask you, was I wrong? Was I cruel to finally stop giving? Or was I just the first person in this house brave enough to demand that respect come before reward? Would you have endured more? Or would you, like me, have finally chosen freedom? Tell me, what would you have done?